We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-T-L-E-S, Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Woo! This team is hot. Episode 199, this Drunk on the Phil show. Whew. Eric, this team could not be hotter. They're tearing up the West Coast, right? Just coming off a sweep of the Dads, because that's what's in. And we got just a lot of good stuff to talk about. A lot of guys that are hot, a lot of hitting streaks, a lot of great stuff, man. Talk to me about where you are, because this team, I got so many exciting things to talk about with the squad.
Yeah, I don't really know what to do. We're not used to having a nice start to the season, right? It's like, are they making it a little bit easy on us? I don't know. But no, I mean, it's been great. Really, you look from top to bottom, and every facet of the team is kind of working, right? You'll have every now and then a reliever might have a bad outing, but that's to be expected. The offense, like even guys you didn't necessarily expect to make big impacts are kind of coming through. The rotation has just been like otherworldly good. So everything is kind of clicking right now. And it's great to get a hot start. I mean, right now there's 4 teams with 19 wins and we're one of them. So, being at that top level this early on is nice. Not having to play catch up in June and waiting for everyone to heat up is just going to be huge down the stretch, trying to, not having to fight for any wins. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, to look at like since April 15th, when they started that series against the Rockies, they've only lost twice, and they lost, and it was 2 consecutive games to the Reds. Like they've played really, really well. The pitching, like you were saying, the pitching has been otherworldly. Is an understatement. They've been really, really the starting pitching, the relief pitching. You have the outing that you get from Taijuan Walker, which didn't look bad up until that last. He gives up the 3-run home run to balloon his ERA. He ends up giving up 6 runs in 6 innings in that outing. But all things considered, that what you got out of the bullpen coming, just to kind of touch on that game a little bit, like what you got out of the bullpen coming in and basically being able to like hold down the fort and keep the win in line. It's really all you can ask from this team.
Yeah. And, I know I think Walker gave up like six runs total, was it?
Six total.
So that obviously looks terrible on paper, but I really feel like he didn't pitch as badly as that number suggests. Really, it was kind of 2 bad pitches that he let get out of the yard. I mean, and if your number 5 pitcher is going to do that every now and then, it is what it is. Like it's the offense is good enough where you could have that happen every now and then and still kind of be put in a position to win games. I saw a quote from him before the game yesterday, just talking about, what he views his job as, right? He's coming in and taking innings. And that's kind of what he's been able to do. So I think the way his season ended last year and the fact that he wasn't using the postseason kind of gave everyone a bit of a sour taste in their mouth on Taijuan Walker. But realistically speaking, if you're looking at a number 5 pitcher and he's your guy, it could be worse. It could definitely be worse. So he's going to have a couple bad games, but other than that, he's gonna eat innings, and that's what you want from him.
Look around MLB, right?
Mhm.
If you're getting wins from that 5th starter spot, and he's eating innings, the fact that you'll live with those every once in a while, outings when you're able to get, especially when you're in a position right now where you're getting the run support too.
Mhm.
The offensive production that you're getting from this up and down this lineup has been, crazy. And even in the fill-in roles, right? The Harper goes out for the paternity leave, right? Cody Clemens comes in and has one hell of a game. He's up for a couple games and goes right back down. Harper comes back. Now this is what the second time that he's come back off the paternity leave to then subsequently hit home runs in his first game back. Like, you're getting a ton of really good offensive production.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you're getting it from the stars, but I actually think right now, looking at the lineup from top to bottom, I think you're almost getting more production from like the ancillary players a little bit. I mean, Bohm just won National League Player of the Week, so that's the first time I think I read since Dominic Brown won it 2 weeks in a row that year. He kind of went off. The first time Phillies have had that 2 weeks in a row, so that's pretty cool. Rojas has been hitting the ball pretty well, as well as you could possibly want from him. He's not hurting you right now. He's showing that, hey, maybe he can actually do what we're asking him to do here. So Turner has had a really good year so far. So yeah, you're really getting it kind of all the way through. So there's not really a spot in the line now. I think early in the season, the bats were a little bit cold, and you know how Phillies fans are, right? We always the thing. So like that, the first couple of weeks where they weren't really scoring runs, it's like, oh no, like who can we actually trust right now? Right now, it's like, who can we not trust? I don't know if there's a guy in the lineup where I'm like nervous that, hey, we're definitely out of this one. So it's kind of a good feeling to have again this early in the year. So yeah, it's been really good to see the lineup hitting as well as they do, because for the last couple of years, the lineup it really has been, once the weather gets warm, that's when the Phillies offense starts going. So it's kind of nice seeing them get out to that start.
They're getting a little bit of a head start on that, because it's the way that the guys that have been really impressive. I mean, you're expecting the production from the guys at the top of the lineup, from your Schwarber, your Turner, your Harper, your Castellanos, your Real Muto, but the production that you're getting from Marsh is having a wildly impressive year.
Yep.
Bohm is, in rarefied air, because right now he's combining what used to be horrific defensive play to the point now where he's more than competent. He's not going to cost you games. He is your above average, very good defensive player, but is wildly impressive at the plate, especially recently, right? And the thing that I love is that you're seeing him hit the ball to all fields, right? You're seeing him hit the ball in the gaps. You're seeing him get singles. You're seeing him. I think did he have this week? 8 doubles? Was it 8 doubles?
Something like that. I think he has an extra base hit in like 8 straight games or something. It's kind of crazy.
It's really cool. And I think, to look at Rojas, right? Rojas has been really impressive too. You're almost seeing how, if we're just a little bit patient, which we never are, right? Our inability to not overreact. In this case, right? He's got hits in 8 of the last 10 games, right? And 3 of those games are multi-hit games.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about where he was, a couple weeks ago, his batting average is what? Probably it's got to be up over 100 points with the influx of production.
Yeah, since so over his last 12 games, I was just doing some research on this a little bit earlier. He's hitting like 521, um, which is crazy. Another interesting thing to look at is because I think one of the things with Bohm was kind of chasing pitches and striking out and not really always seeing it coming in well. Right now his strikeout rate over that same time is like 11%, which is like crazy low. Not for even just him, but just for like major league average over that span. So the fact that he's seeing the ball better. He's not chasing as many pitches out of the zone. He's barreling the ball a little bit more. Like you said, he's using all different parts of the field. He's been really impressive to watch at the plate. And yeah, I mean, it's just like almost every single night, I feel like, might as well just take him to hit a double because it's almost like it's almost guaranteed at this point. So it's been really good to see, especially because with him, I think what we weren't really seeing a lot of the power last year. We started seeing him come into that a little bit more. But this year, and again, even if it's not the home runs, just getting these extra base hits, knocking in runs, and just making things happen. It's just been really, really good to see. So yeah, he's been really impressive. But I mean, like I feel like we could really talk about almost every single guy up and down the lineup and say how they've been doing, with the exception of maybe one, our right fielder, his he hit his first home run the other day, so maybe he's coming out of it. But I know he's still been a source of some frustration for some people. But overall, if he's eventually going to get hot, this is I feel like the kind of guy Castellanos just is. He's going to go through hot streaks, cold streaks, and take some offensive production when we can get it. But when you have all the other guys around him who are hitting well, I mean, right now he's protected by I think I saw tonight it's Bohm, Romuto.
So you want the lineup?
Yeah, if you have it, I saw it earlier, and now I got all these other numbers.
So at the top, you got Schwarber's going to DH. You got Turner, Harper, Bohm, Marsh. Then you got Castellanos, Stott, Rojas, and Stubbs.
Right.
So Realmuto gets the night off,
which he probably should.
I mean, he's playing a lot, but it's the kind of thing where, like, even if it's early, you ride that hot lineup to be able to get opportunities to be able to, just stack these wins. The more you're stacking these wins, the better off you are. Because, and even if you want to start at the top, right? The thing that has impressed me a lot about Schwarber is his plate discipline. I've seen some good plate discipline. The at bat the other day, where he ends up taking enough pitches to be able to get a walk to force a run, and like you've seen him in at bats past where he's now listen, he is still swinging wildly, but he's also been productive, right? He's getting the ball. And the thing that I like is that you have him with opportunities to get RBIs because the guys at the bottom of the lineup have been so productive that they're on base.
Mm-hmm. And I think we've talked about this. I can't even count how many times now, but this is exactly what we've talked about, right? Like I always joke around because a lot of people do not like Schwarber in the leadoff spot. And I'm just like, well, you look at on base percentage. That's kind of what you really want from a obviously from your leadoff guy. So, last year it was not singles, it was walks he'd get on base for. But now, I mean, he's getting on base with walks, singles, and he's still hitting for some power. So it's like he's doing everything you kind of want. And yeah, the guys at the bottom are getting on base for him now. So you're going to see more of that RBI production from him, even out of the one spot in the lineup. So it's just it's really good to see, because I feel like right now, again, other really than Castellanos, there's not really many holes. Another guy who hopefully is now coming out of it, because Stott had a bit of a rough start, but he's just such like a professional hitter that I wasn't ever really too concerned about him. But having the 2 home runs yesterday, I think was a really good thing for him. So hopefully he's going to start seeing the ball a little better and coming out of it. But again, it's a really good issue right now because everyone is kind of clicking, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, you do see some of these guys hitting their stride, right? And we know that inevitably what's going to happen if this team is going into June, into May and June hot, sky's the limit, right? Like, because you're looking at, right, and Adam, letting us know that like they're leading the league right now with 38 home runs. If they're on pace right now, right, and they're putting up numbers early in the season when it gets hot and that ball starts flying, it's going to get wild down there, because they do have a lineup that is built to be able to just pound the ball. And Turner's been another guy, right? Turner's been another guy who's really kind of caught his stride. You're seeing the professional hitter that I think we all knew we thought we were going to get, right? And when I look at him, right, you're going to see, right, double digit doubles.
Mm-hmm.
You're not seeing the home run production, right? He's only got 2, but I think, to me, right, the more productive that you can see these guys get on base, the more that they put pressure on teams early, right? And the fact that they're already in a position where they're putting the Braves in a position to not have an opportunity to take their foot off the gas at any point during the season. And I think they know what's waiting for them in the postseason. They know that this team, even though, right, when you talk about their ability right now to keep stacking up wins and where it puts them in the standings, as wild as it is, as great as they've been, they would still be the wild card team, right? They'd still be sitting behind the Braves. And I think the more that they can keep the pressure on the Braves, and the more offensively productive they can continue to be, the better off this team is going to be in a position to strike for the opportunity to be able to take the division.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really what we want. I mean, it's obviously getting in as a wild card team is cool and all, but I hate this, like, sitting back and just like being content with that, and where the Braves are 10.5 games up on us and everything like that. Like, I want to make it a close race. I think we're finally at the point now where we are, obviously Atlanta is a great team. But I think if you look at it right now, pitching wise, I think we're better. Lineup wise, their lineup is just potent all the time. And it's funny, every time, like, I'll be scoreboard watching already. I know it's only April 29th, but I still like doing it because we're close to them right now. So like, every time I look, I'm like, oh, cool, Braves are losing, or they're in a close game, maybe they'll lose one, and then I look, I'm like, oh, they won again. So they're gonna find ways to win. I'm really hoping it's a tight race, and it'll be so much fun for the division race to go down to like the last week of the season. Rather than last year when the Braves clinched it at Citizens Bank Park, and then we were playing for the wild card spot. I just want to have that option to win the division, because realistically, it's great that we beat the Braves the last 2 years in the postseason. And I don't want to sound like negative about this, but how many times can we bank on that happening? Because I think in the postseason we do have their number. Obviously, it's a big home field advantage playing at Citizens Bank Park. But like, I don't want to keep relying on being like, well, you know what? We beat the Braves the last 2 seasons, so we could go in and do that again. Like, give us a lower seed to play early on and make it a little less stressful for us.
Yeah, I think for me, right, the Braves have built a wildly productive team for the season, right? They built a team that just that mashes, that is wildly offensively productive, and they've got, like, their pitching has been like good enough. Like, the guys that they have in their rotation, like, they don't scare me, especially when you get into the postseason, right? Because in the postseason, right, those postseason series are every at-bat, every pitch, every situation is amplified tenfold. And when you look at where these two teams match up, and when they match up in the postseason, the Phillies are built more for that short series to be. Now, you saw it come back and bite them in that Diamondback series, because essentially someone turned the fucking light switch off, and they weren't getting any offensive production. Now, the likelihood that then happens a second time, I think, is really unlikely. You're also getting there wasn't a lot of turnover on this roster. You got a lot of the same guys, a lot of the guys that are playing together. I think what I'm seeing from this team early on is a team that is ready to challenge themselves, to put themselves in a position to make the Braves sweat and really kind of right the wrong of the last couple postseasons where they ended it way too early and way earlier than they thought they would.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. I mean, that was probably an anomaly where you're going to see every single bat go cold at once. But I think a lot of it did have to do with, like, you know, you got to give the Diamondbacks credit. They adjusted and they ended up making the adjustments, and we didn't. So I think that's a good learning experience. I think going through the 2022 playoffs, there wasn't that expectation, right? Like, it's like, hey, you know what? They made it. They won the first round. Cool. They won the set. Yeah, they keep kind of moving on. It's like, wow, all of a sudden they're in the World Series, and it's kind of like playing with house money. Then last year you go in and your expectations are way higher because of what they did the year before, and they just kind of fizzled out. So now you kind of have both sides of that, right? You have a really successful postseason, and then you have one that, you know, I think most teams would be happy with, right? Like, most teams are going to be happy making it to Game 7 of the National League Championship Series, but I think with the Phillies, there is that chip on their shoulder because they know that they should have won that series. They had a game, they had 2 games in hand basically, and ended up blowing it with just not making the right adjustments. So I think the potential's there. And you're right, they didn't need to make a lot of lineup changes because they know what they had. And I think going into this offseason, I think we got so spoiled with everyone being, you know, last year was, you know, Turner, a couple of years ago was, but we've always had like that kind of big splash in free agency, and this year we didn't. So I think that was like kind of one, like, well, are they just like complacent? Are they content? I'm like, I think they should be, right? There's no sense in going out and making these big name signings when you don't need to. 2, I think, pretty prime examples: Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery. Neither one, Blake Snell especially, is having a rough go to start things off. So I think, like, you know, going in, I really trust this front office. I trust the talent evaluation they have here. And I think going into it, they know exactly what they need to do. And I think they're primed to now not just make another postseason run, but you're right, stay with the Braves in the NL East battle too.
Yeah, and listen, I'll never root for a guy to be injured, but Strider being out kills the Braves from a starting pitching perspective. It really puts them at a disadvantage, especially in a short series, especially in a series-based postseason, where, you know, the ability to be able to kind of lead off of that game one and how effective he can be, as much as the Phillies have been able to get to him in the postseason. Again, I don't want to play poker. I'm not trying to play blackjack against that guy year after year after year and kind of depending on going back to the well and be like, oh, well, we'll just wait for them in the postseason. Now, I'm curious to see, as this season evolves, how they look to address, you know, like trying to look, you know, further along down the summer. You know, how do they address I'm curious to see how they might address the trade deadline, how this roster evolves. Because it really does feel like there are a lot of things that are kind of falling into place. Guys are filling, you know, you see guys in the bullpen kind of falling into their roles. They're being really productive in their roles. I think you're going to see kind of a more of a repeat of what you saw in the offseason, which is like a lot of additions on the fringes.
Yeah, when you have a good team, that's what you're going to see, and I think that's the way to go. I mean, you look payroll wise, we're in the top 5. I forget the exact number we're at, but you know, you can't sustainably build a team that's going to last if you don't build from the fringes, right? And eventually even get contributions from some of your younger guys working their way up the system. So, and that's what the Braves have been so good at doing. They're not making necessarily huge free agent signings all the time. In fact, they're locking up a lot of the young guys way earlier than anyone really sees possible. So they've been locking these guys up, and they still have like a pretty top end farm system. So that's the thing. Like, they've just been able to build this franchise and kind of keep putting in guys. If someone gets injured, they're able to kind of fill that hole. You spoke about the trade deadline. I think, the Phillies talked about this too, whereas, they're going to go into the season and then assess any needs, in the summer, right? Look at the trade deadline and see what they might need to acquire there. I think the Braves are in just as good a position, if not a better position, to do those same types of things. And I think, seeing what happens with Strider being out, they have time to evaluate that rotation and see, hey, is there an acquisition we need to make at the trade deadline to kind of push us, a little further ahead of the Phillies here in that regard. But the one thing I will say about the Phillies is getting production from rotational guys, homegrown ones, right? Nola and Suarez, and then Sanchez was acquired from the Rays, but was not like a major league player when we got him. So he's kind of on that thing where they were able to develop him a little bit. So
it's homegrown-ish.
Ish, right? And honestly, anytime a pitcher comes from the Rays, give him to me. The Rays have such a good pitching development system down there. So it's good to see those guys being able to kind of come up and do that same thing the Braves have been doing. A guy like Sanchez. And then another fringe move that we made was the Turnbull signing. And I mean, could not.
I'm going to give you the platform on this one because
signing him. Okay, I knew going into it the stuff he has, the potential he has, and everything. Right. From what he did back in, I know it sounds a while ago, 2021, when that was his last full season before Tommy John, and then last year he only pitched a handful of innings from, I think it was it an oblique injury, some other sort of injury, but nothing majorly alarming from a pitching standpoint. So taking a flyer on a guy for $2 million versus trying to pay Blake Snell whatever $20 million contract he wanted. I'm I don't to me it's a wash, right? I'm okay, if Turnbull stinks, fine, you're not really wasting that much money. If Snell stinks, which he does, and I think the Phillies front office evaluated that, right? And I think a lot of other teams did too, because just seeing how long he was a free agent, he didn't get what he wanted. I think a lot of people saw that. So to me, it's the Turnbull move was great. I did not expect him to be doing what he's doing right now.
No, not at all. You really we talked. We bounced those two guys around a lot, and to now kind of look at their stat line a couple games in. Right, you're talking about Blake Snell with a 0-3 with an ERA just a shade under 12. Just not super productive, right? He's got 12 innings, 11 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts. It's not looking good. When you talk about the on-field production, the money that they're paying him, and what that does in relationship to the roster building, the flyer that you took on Spencer Turnbull seems to be the kind of thing that Dombrowski is just known for mining these guys and getting the production from these guys where they're willing to they're in a good position because they're willing and able to take chances on these guys without having it dramatically affect the salary cap. When you look at what Blake Snell is producing on the field versus what he's getting paid, it doesn't add up, but it also makes Dombrowski look all that much better.
Yeah, I think that's something that like you said, that's kind of something he's been known to do. He knows baseball, he knows talent, but I think also going into it is not even just the front office being able to evaluate that, but our pitching coaches, Caleb Cotham and Brian Kaplan. You see, every pitcher we've acquired or has come up has been productive, and to me, that's not coincidental. It's not just all of these pitchers were just really good, just kind of somewhere else or in the minor leagues or whatever it might have been. I really think that these guys have completely changed the pitching culture and the pitching program with this team. And a lot of the pitchers have been, singing their praises for a couple of years now. I know, and you just see like everyone who has come here has been better, right? Look at Zach Wheeler. He is, if not one of the best, he's top 3 probably pitcher in baseball right now, with some of the other pitchers being injured. And coming from the Mets, like when we signed him, I'm like, cool. If he works out, great. If not, we'll see what happens. But I mean, everything he's done has been great, and it's just like you got to think. It's not just like a switch flip, unless the Mets pitching development is really that bad, which it could be. They're an organization who's known for some turmoil, but it's one of those things where it's like every single guy, like Ranger Suarez, he was projected to be like a maybe 3 starter, and he is a 3 starter right now on our team, but he's pitching well enough to be maybe a back end 2. Probably not a 1 on most teams, but he's pitching well enough to do that. And the fact that we're getting as much as we possibly can out of almost every pitcher, whether it's starting rotation or bullpen. I mean, Jeff Hoffman, same thing.
He's the guy I was just going to talk about. Like, the thing that I really find fascinating is that it's really, really difficult to go when you're going through the guys that have pitched here over the course of the last couple of years. The amount of guys that have gotten worse is a really, really small number. Like the thing that I look at when I'm looking at these, I'm just looking with my eyeballs, not even going through the stats and kind of deep dive into the numbers. There's not many guys that have gotten worse, right? There's a handful of guys for a variety of reasons. Some of them at bigger spots than others, but you have, for the most part, a really, really productive pitching staff. Guys that are progressively getting better, guys that are adding pitches. You look at the in-season adjustment that Nolan makes last year with the was it the foot placement, or was it the directional? The way he was
like
standing
shoulder,
on the mound,
it was like shoulder angle or so. Yeah, because just like the little stuff like that they were able to pick up on is crazy.
But like that, like those little adjustments made such a huge difference. Those are things that you cannot underestimate when you're trying to develop and build a staff, and then what that does to the other guys, and how that allows those other guys to allow that trust to know that what is being shared and what is being put into practice actually is working and it's productive. And it's like, oh, all right, that makes it a really, really easy buy-in, right? The places where this pitching staff has kind of fallen apart. I mean, the obvious one is to go to Craig Kimbrell, right? The way that he kind of melted at the end of that Diamondback series was something of epic proportions. Brogdon had struggles. Sir Anthony has had his fair share of his peaks and valleys, but for the most part, you look at guys that have been really, really productive.
Yeah, you do. And again, it's funny you said how many guys are coming to the Phillies and actually getting better. Who would have thought we'd ever be saying that? Usually, isn't it always that a free agent comes to the Phillies and it's like, oh, they've been terrible. So yeah, it's great to see. But I so much of it is just like I feel like the culture of this team, the culture of the front office, the coaching staff, and I don't even just mean like Rob Thompson. He does what he does to get enough out of his players, but I think you have to give so much to the instructional type guys, right? Like I said, like Cotham and Kaplan, and even Kevin Long on the offensive side of things. Like you're just, I think you're getting the most out of each of these guys, and a huge thing is just like these guys like playing with each other. They like playing for each other. It's just like such a fun dynamic to watch. After every single game that they win, with Marsh and Stott, dumping God knows what on every guy.
Yeah.
So it's just like you see all this little stuff, and it's like the culture of this organization is just like in such a good place right now, and that it's a winning culture, which is exactly what you want to see. So yeah, I mean, there's going to be guys who struggle, right? Like Sir Anthony is looking he's not looking great. The
No.
command is just non-existent right now. I wonder how long they kind of let that go. Now it looks like maybe Kirkering starts taking some of his higher leverage situations, which would be good to see. But do you remember a couple of years ago they sent Alvarado down, and just because he struggled, I think he had like an 8-something ERA for the first like month or so. He got sent down, worked some things out, and then since he's come back up, he's been one of the most dominant relievers in baseball. So I wonder if they're going to try if he keeps struggling and struggles with command, if they don't try something like that with Dominguez too. But I mean, at this point, he's one of the few guys in that bullpen that it's just like he kind of gives you a little bit of a scare. Just, and again, he has this stuff. It's just I don't know if it's a confidence thing right now or if it is something mechanical where they can kind of work on that with him. But right now, his command is just completely lost.
Yeah, to me, that's a guy right now that you just can't trust. It's a guy that I don't put out there in any kind of high leverage situations. He's just a guy that, for me, is just going to go out there and eat innings if I need him to go eat innings, which is a shame because when, it wasn't that long ago when his stuff was electric coming out of the bullpen and he was just, throwing fastball. It was all gas, no brakes, and just being able to just be wildly productive coming out of the pen. And now, I like what I'm seeing from Kirkering coming out of the bullpen, coming back off of this, off of the injury that he had, to see him, have that effect, the effective fastball in the high 90s, right? But then to be able to also add in the sweeper that, sits in that the high 80s, low 90s, to be able to have that dramatic of a drop off with those two pitches coming out of the same arm slot. It's just really, really cool to see that he's able to, kind of get back to where he was about, it wasn't this time last year, but it was about, it for all intents and purposes, right? About a year ago, he was kind of in this mode where he was just, really productive coming out of the bullpen. And then he had that little stretch in that Diamondback series, in the postseason where, he just became a guy that you couldn't trust in those high leverage spots. But you're also getting really good production. Hoffman has been really good at coming out of the pen. I mean, even guys like Gregory Soto have been good.
Junior Marte has
been good too.
He's been really, really a pleasant surprise. And going back to Kirkering, it's crazy. Like a year ago this time, I am pretty sure he was still in Clearwater at this point last year. Which just crazy how quick he rose up through the system. But yeah, the biggest thing that I like seeing from him is he is establishing the fastball a little bit more. Like before, it almost looked like he was nervous to throw that, but then there was a couple of those games in the postseason where, again, young guy had virtually no major league experience and called a pitch in pretty high leverage situations. So it's tough to fault him there, but he would lose feel for the sweeper and just kind of keep going back to it. It's almost like he was just like, I'm not throwing the fastball. I don't trust it. And that would kind of get him in trouble. So it's good to see him kind of using the fastball a little bit more, because if he can kind of, build off that and then use that sweeper, it's just devastating. Like it's crazy. I think I've mentioned it before, but the Pitching Ninja account on Twitter has been it's one of my favorite accounts to follow. I scroll through and watch a lot of that every night. And like Kirkering is almost a guarantee to be on it any night that he comes in and pitches, because he is guaranteed to have at least one devastating sweeper that just makes the guy's knees buckle or just makes the guy look goofy up there. So it's really good to hopefully get like a full season from him and kind of see what he can do, because his stuff is just really, really impressive.
Yeah, and the other guy to me, right, the guy that's at the center of your lineup, right, Harper has been a really, really a breath of fresh air in terms of his consistency. You look at where he is in his career, right? his ability to be able to just be that steady balance of force in the middle of that lineup is just a really cool. It's a really cool to be on the other end of this, where the guys are gravitating to play with him, but the way that you see him in terms of his ability to be able, right, to now transfer, and full-time play a new position, pretty much what will probably be the position that he will kind of land with for the rest of his career, and still be and still be offensively productive, right? He's not lighting the world on fire just yet, but you can see that the swings are there. You can see that the way that he's able to put the bat on the ball is just really, really impressive early on. And he's a guy that I can't wait for when the weather gets hot, because when the weather gets hot and he's hot and the ball's flying out of there, I mean, if you're sitting in the second deck, you better watch out.
Yeah, he's going to heat up at some point. It's just a matter of time. And it's not even like he's been doing that poorly. It's just like, what we know what Bryce can do. So yeah, the bat will definitely get there. I'm not worried about that. His defense at first base is really good for just learning this less than a year ago.
I was going to say, for a guy that's been playing it less than a year, and to jump in and be defensively more impressive than the guy that you replaced.
Nah, in fairness, just not hard to do. Hoskins was pretty bad.
Not hard to do. But for a guy that has never played that position professionally, and to be able to just kind of pick it up, really does speak to the elite level of athlete.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And we've said this before on the show. He's one of those guys who, if he's going to do something, he's going to do it 150%. Like, it's not like, I'm going to learn and be an average first baseman. He's going to want to be the best first baseman out there, which shows, because sometimes he could be a little over the top with some of the stuff he tries to do too. So yeah, I'm happy with all that. The only thing that I can get on Bryce's case about, base running. Dude gets thrown out doing more goofy stuff on the base pass than I've ever seen. And I know it's because he's just that intense and is always trying to take that extra base or make something else happen. But I'm just like, Bryce, just stay there. You got guys behind you who can knock you in, steal a base if you want to. That would help my fantasy team. But it's just just be a little smarter on the base pass, because he is such a good player. He again is the reason the Phillies are where they are right now. I firmly believe that his signing was a complete game changer for this franchise. So again, if that's the only complaint I have, I guess that's not too bad. But I'm just it was yesterday where he gets caught kind of running past second base and gets caught going back. It's I just wish he was a little bit smarter there. I did notice this the other day.
I was going to ask you about it.
And because he's not a guy who doesn't hustle. And the other day there was a play that I thought was kind of slow to develop. I forget which game this was, but I'm watching and I'm like, oh, Bryce might have a shot to beat this out. And then I look and he's not even halfway down the line. So I don't know if it's he doesn't want to aggravate the back, but then at the same time, he runs full speed to crash into anything to catch a foul ball in fair territory. Yeah. So I don't really know what that's all about. And I don't know if that's something that, because isn't it the same thing that Papelbon choked him out for back in Washington, not running out of ball?
Yeah.
We've never seen Bryce kind of dog it like that before. And it's kind of been going on all year. And I think most of the time it's happened, hasn't really made a difference, but it's something that I don't love seeing. So I don't know if it's a health issue or what.
Yeah,
I have noticed that's an interesting comment.
It tends to for me, it tends to lean towards that there's something that there's not a willingness to aggravate. It doesn't seem like it's I'm kind of dog it mentality.
Yeah, he doesn't have that. Yeah, he doesn't have that personality.
It doesn't show up in other parts of the game, right? When you see him wild, it's almost like he's reserving that energy for a time where he would absolutely need it. At the same time, it does. You don't want to set that precedent of that there are times when it's okay to like selectively put out effort.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But
I don't really know. Hopefully it's nothing concerning. Because like
yeah,
you said, it's not really. I don't think like it's in his mentality to ever let up.
mm,
So I don't know what that's all about. That would be a good question for someone to ask. But then again, I'm afraid of
yeah,
what his response to that might be. So
yeah. I'd be curious. I'd be curious to see how honest of a response that you might get. But listen,
mhm.
uh, you might want to. We might want to tell the Phillies that there should be more of the dollar, not the dollar dog, but the BOGO dollar dog nights, because Bryce Harper's statistical stuff on those nights. In two Hatfield, Frank, I keep wanting to
It's
say
it,
the dollar dog nights, the
yeah. It
BOGO
doesn't.
nights. It sounds fucking. It just sounds
Yeah.
stupid,
It
right?
doesn't
But
roll off the tongue. Yeah.
now in those two games, he's got 8 at bats, 5 hits, 9 RBIs, a double, and 4 home runs. We need more BOGO nights.
So BOGO nights and more Harper kids.
Oh God. Oh man. That is wild. Well, listen, there's
That
a
is
couple
crazy.
of things. I want to let's look ahead a little bit before we kind of touch base on some other baseball stuff. Looking forward to this Angels series, the matchup against Mike Trout. Obviously, they're not going to face each other, right? But the statistical comparisons, right, is one that is a really cool thing to kind of look at them side by side. And MLB Network put out a really good graphic. I'm going to try to bring it up to take a look at it with you, because it really does show how dominant these players are. You know, when you look at the two of them side by side, and both of these, right, you're talking about just in the neighborhood of 1,500 games. I'll tell you what, Mike Trout is wildly underestimated in terms of being the best player in baseball, because of the injuries. But the fact that he plays on the West Coast really, to me, waters down all of these statistics, because we don't ever see them. We don't ever get an opportunity to see them play, especially at the time when they had him and Ohtani on the same team. You would think that MLB would try to get them on as much as humanly possible. But when you look at his statistical stuff compared to Bryce Harper, right, you see how much that you thought that Bryce Harper was productive, and then there's another level of production in terms of Mike Trout.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, what was it? No, couldn't be any more than like 3-4 years ago. Like Trout was regarded as the best player in baseball
Yeah.
for a few years, right? And then Ohtani came along, and everyone's like, "Wow, this guy can pitch and hit," and you kind of get that idea. But looking at these numbers is it's pretty impressive given the amount of time Trout's missed from injuries. I know Bryce has too, but the number that sticks out to me there is the WAR. I had no idea he was a 40. He had 40 more WAR than Bryce. That's like another like pretty good player, better than Bryce. That's crazy how good he really is. I mean, I think the average WAR of like Hall of Famers is somewhere in the 60s. And the fact that he's still only in his 30s, these numbers are crazy.
Yeah, and I would advise people to go look at stuff like this when you talk about, if the Angels potentially get to a spot where they sell, and if you had the opportunity to add a guy like that to your lineup, that like I don't want to say that you empty out the farm system, but you basically open up the cupboard and say, if this is, because that's a guy that when and we always have to catch it when healthy, that's a guy that you plug and play and you don't even think about, and he elevates your lineup even more. Because, you look at, and you think about, you'd have to give up major league talent. You would have to give up a ton of minor league talent. But the opportunity to add that guy, I mean, I don't even know how I don't know how you would say no. I just say you figure out all the details.
Yeah, figure something out. I mean, obviously, adding something like that, like a Trout, would put this team, would move the needle so much. And I really hope the guy can stay healthy. I really would wonder what a trade package there would look like. And just wonder, like, okay, yeah, obviously some major league talent. I mean, I think it's going to take, at least two of our top 30 prospects, if not more. And I wonder, I wonder how much they'd be willing to sell. And he keeps saying he doesn't want to leave Anaheim, and I don't know why, because I was talking trash on the Mets earlier. This might be an organization that's run worse than the Mets. So I don't understand what he likes about it. I just worry about, and again, I know our window is now, and I know prospects are never a sure thing. I get nervous mortgaging the future on a guy. Obviously, I'm looking at these numbers, and the fact that he did all these things in less games than Bryce too is also pretty crazy. But mortgaging the future on a guy who does have kind of that now injury history, and he's not getting any younger. So again, if the right thing, if they were able to make it happen, you're not going to get any complaints from me.
No, and Eric, while we were just talking, I pulled up. So the article that I'm pulling up is from an Angels based. It looks like an Angels based blog, the Halo Hangout, right?
Okay.
And they have the Angels would need, the deal that they were talking about discussing was a deal that was proposed by someone on from Dave Schoenfield on ESPN, and the potential deal that he was talking about was Castellanos, Justin Crawford, Griff McGarry, and $15 million in cash.
I would do that right now.
Right. But the blog is saying, obviously, if that's where the deal is starting, if I'm the Angels, I'm asking for significantly more.
Absolutely.
To start. But it's a fun thing to think about. But what are your thoughts going into this Angel series?
This to me is a series that you got to keep the momentum going. They're not a great team. I know, after a sweep on the West Coast, I think it's greedy to ask for another sweep. But again, they're not a great team. You got to get 2 out of 3, though. You got to get 2 out of 3. Just because I don't think you want to let up any of the momentum heading into the off day on Thursday. But again, it's taking the sweep in San Diego was super impressive. So yeah, I'm looking to get 2 out of 3 here at least, and then head into the off day, and then into the weekend, still on a high note here.
Yeah, I think to me the idea, you go in trying to put down a wounded animal here, right? The Angels are on the struggle bus, to be kind. So I think the way that you go into this series is, take it one game at a time. But I want to be greedy at this point. I want to come home with 6 straight from the West Coast and be able to, kind of just keep riding that wave and keep the pressure on the Braves. I'm just looking for them to go out there and be productive. Kind of pissed that these games are starting close to 10 o'clock.
I hate these late
it's, the times where you want to be able to see Mike Trout play. It's not going to leave a whole lot of room for sleep the next day. No. That's for sure.
No.
But really looking forward to this team and seeing where they can go, right? Because after they play the Angels, they're going to come home, correct?
Yes.
They go, then they come home and play. They're going to play 4 against San Fran at home.
Oh, right. That's right.
So say they'll have
So-
San Fran at home, Toronto at home, and then they'll go at Miami and then at the Mets.
That's kind of enticing. I mean, the Giants for some reason always play us really well. I feel like we do not play well against the Giants. But who knows? Maybe we'll line up against Snell and we can add to that ERA a little bit. But I think obviously if we can get a split there, Miami is atrocious this year, and it's weird because I feel like they're like always a team that kind of has like even if they start out a little strong, but they're just like bad. So that shouldn't be too bad. And then the Mets actually are playing better than I thought they would. I don't know how long that's sustainable. I don't know if they're and they're really not even getting production. Like Lindor is having a horrible start to the year, so they're not even getting production from like some of their big names there. So I don't know. Maybe it'll be a little bit better than I thought, but that could be any division series is tough. And I think the Mets are kind of out to prove that hey, we're not as bad as everyone says we are. So maybe they might put up a little bit of a fight. But I really think out of those series, you gotta do damage. Bury some of these teams when you're better than them.
I love it. Eric, anything on the way out the door you want to talk about before we jump out of here?
No, I think we covered all the stuff that I was thinking about. So just keep the momentum going. Don't let up, and let's go into May on a nice run here.
I saw just one. I saw a little bit of the glimpse into some of the behind the scenes with the UK series in London.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that they had the most recent series, the international play in Mexico City with the Astros and Rockies? Where are your thoughts in terms of where MLB can go in terms of expanding? They're obviously trying to make this a consistent thing playing in London, right? That we know that they try to get the West Coast teams down to the different stadiums in Mexico. What are your thoughts on where that international play could go?
It's really cool. I mean, they do. They have London, they have Mexico City. The Padres and Dodgers this year opening up in where were they?
Oh, right.
They were in Korea, right? Yeah, they're in Korea. So getting internet, even getting to the Asian market, I think, because right now, like just having Ohtani and some of these other guys getting into the Asian market right now, I think is huge to grow the game, because that is like a huge baseball culture. It's great, and even seeing that during the World Baseball Classic last year. I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing a little bit more of extension, like kind of following the NFL's lead a little bit. Maybe start making your way into like Germany at some point.
Okay.
Now the other things, because in the Caribbean and Latin America, you do have such a big baseball culture there too. Obviously, seeing it in Mexico, but seeing it maybe in you have so many guys coming out of the Dominican. Seeing some stuff down there, I think would be kind of cool. So I think because baseball is becoming more of a global game, their options are really, really opening up. So it would be cool to see a couple of those different places.
I think the way to as long as you have a location that is suitable, I think that the way that the MLB is going to grow the game is the more global that you can make it, right? The better off you're going to be. Now they are going to play. It looks like so in March they're going to play a Dominican Republic series in spring training.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So, but I think the more that you can kind of grow the game and the more global you can make it, I think the way that I would see them expanding is that like you bring over like multiple teams. Maybe you bring over 4 teams, and maybe there is a little bit of like a pool play tournament like kind of aspect to it. That could be cool.
Yeah.
But even if you brought over 4 teams and you kept them there for, I don't want to obligate anybody else's time, but like you kept them there for like 10 days and you let each team, 2 teams play, and then you swap. And you get 2 series out of it, but you allow the fans to see 4 teams instead of just 2.
Yeah. I think the more exposure you get, and because it's funny, like even watching the NFL games, and I think it'll be pretty much the same with the London series, where it's like a lot of the people they're not necessarily, they don't have an allegiance to like a baseball team or NFL team. It's like they just want to go see, see two teams that they don't normally see, right? Like, I mean, like if two Premier League teams came to the link, that would be pretty cool. That would get a huge draw. So I think it's just always cool kind of seeing, athletes from, other countries or different sports that maybe you're not really necessarily used to in your home country kind of coming out and playing. So I'm really looking forward to the London series. Actually, I think it's a cool thing to see. I also kind of like the idea of like a Sunday, like 10 a.m. game. I'm kind of pumped for that. So
it is nice. Those international games, when I think about like those international games on the NFL schedule,
mm-hmm.
just having that little bit of early dose of sports,
mm-hmm.
it hits a little bit different when you're just, it's early, sitting on the couch with a cup of coffee, makes the feeling a little bit brighter.
Yeah, and I mean, by the time it's done, you're not far from the 1 o'clock kickoff, so it's
exactly.
It's really a full day.
Well, brother, we will we'll check back in with everybody in a couple weeks, but everybody go Phils, and we'll check you out on the next episode. Take care.
All right, go Phils.
This is the Broad Street Line, where Philly sports fans leave all of their sports hot takes. Call 267-405-3062 and show us your passion for Philly sports. Don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 8:30 when we listen to your live reactions to the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat.